Hey guys, what's up? Justine here. I'm so sorry I haven't posted in literally probably like 3 weeks, but I've been so busy. I've been working full-time and I've been doing like night day rotation. It's been crazy and I just honestly haven't even had like a second to stop and film. And vlogging when you're doing like 6 nights in a row, I don't know, I feel like there's nothing really interesting about that because all I'm doing is like sleeping, eating, and working, and most of it is sleeping. So maybe next week or the week after, if I have a bit more of an interesting week, I'll do like a week in my life, but I just haven't had that opportunity. So as most of you may know, I recently started a new job in the emergency department, a new hospital, new town. It definitely took some getting used to, and I thought I could give you guys some advice on like how my experience went. Yeah, I'll give you guys advice on like starting a new job. This is more gonna be for like when you're changing jobs versus when you're like starting like your first job, because I talk about like how to adapt and things like that. But it's just like 5 little tips that I came up with that I found that helped me, and I will definitely be using in the future whenever I change jobs again. So without further ado, let's get started. So my first tip is to prepare for your new job. So whatever unit you're going to be working on, do some research, do some studying on what you're going to see on that unit, what tasks you're going to have to do, what skills, what knowledge, medications, things like that. So for instance, if you're working on a transplant floor, look up the rejection medications, look up post-ops, just look things up so that when you get there, you're not completely lost and you already have some idea of what to expect. I think I already showed you guys, but I had bought a little like ER book, which actually hasn't been that useful so far because it's more for like triage. I'm more in like in the back where like patients are like admitted for observation, so I haven't really used the knowledge that I got from there. But I have an EKG book that has been super useful because we have to analyze like patients like heart monitor, like their heart rhythm, and I haven't had my orientation yet. I have it next week, and so having that book and like having a little bit of knowledge has helped me. Obviously I don't analyze the rhythm strips by myself. I have someone else help me because I can calculate like the PR and the QRS, but like I can't analyze what it looks like except if it's like sinus. So that's definitely been helpful. And then just to look up, like I remember I looked up like what to do like initially, like if a patient has like chest pain, if like they have whatever, just like the steps to follow, and just so I can be prepared and not waste time when those situations arise. The next tip I have is to adapt. Now I've talked about this, but this is like the main thing that I had to work on, because new job environment, new hospitals, they all have different protocols, different policies, different ways they do things. And when I find that like I was so stuck in like how I did things in my old hospital that it was really hard to adapt to the new way of doing things, and it took me a while to be like, okay, like we don't do it like that anymore. I need to focus on like this, and this is how they do it, and this is how I need to do it now. And it's just, change is hard sometimes, especially for like nurses when you've learned something a way and you've been doing it for so long, and I have to do it a different way. It's really hard, but it's gonna give you more like stress and anxiety if you like resist it than if you just accept it, learn it, and then just start doing it that way. I'm trying to think of like an example, like the pumps. Obviously I didn't have a choice. Pumps are different, you gotta work with it, but the pumps are super different than what I'm used to, and so I still struggle. Like I've been there for a month and I still struggle to like arrange them and like if they're beeping or whatever. But instead of getting frustrated and be like, oh my god, our old pumps were so much better, why do these suck so bad, I just like accept it, and I'm like, okay, just like focus and practice, and what can I do to make it better? So just like make it a positive and then learn from that experience. My next tip is to ask a ton of questions, and this might seem like super self-explanatory, but even like during my orientation, I found myself afraid to ask questions because either I thought it was stupid or I thought my preceptor would get annoyed of me. But I'm so glad that I like sucked it up and asked the questions, even if I had like 10 in like the span of like half an hour or whatever. because now that I'm by myself, I don't find myself stuck being like, crap, like where is this thing, or like how does this thing work, because I asked the questions when I had the opportunity to. And so now I'm much quicker with my things, and I'm not wasting time trying to find things. Like the other day I had to start a blood transfusion and I couldn't find a pump. There were no more pumps, and so I looked in all the rooms and there were no pumps. I'm like, where the hell are all the pumps? They're not even being used. So I went and asked the LPN. I was like, where can I take a pump? And she's like, oh, just go in the trauma room. So I took one from there. But like, had I asked that question before, like what happens if there's no pumps? What happens if this? I would have known. Like I asked, like what happens if it's the middle of the night and I'm the only one on the floor, because like everyone else went on break, and I'm the only one in the observation. There's one person in the front in triage, and my patient suddenly codes. Like if I pull the emergency bell, first of all, it doesn't go off on the whole unit. It only goes off on like the call bell intercom system. And if there's no one in the back, no one's gonna hear it, and it doesn't translate to the front. So I was like, what the hell do I do? And that's actually something that I asked last week when I'm like off orientation, but I just wondered, I'm like, what do you do? Like you pull it, no one's gonna hear it. Do I like call a code right away? There's not even a phone in the room. Do I run to find, like, I honestly don't even know what I would do. Like and the LPN told me, she's like, you can either like go back to the nursing station, call the code, and then everyone's gonna come, but then I'm like wasting time. Or do I run and get someone? And I don't know. I still don't know what I would do. I feel like adrenaline would just kick in. I just like run around the unit like a chicken with its head cut off trying to find someone. But what I'm trying to say is ask your questions, because you will thank yourself later, because you'll know the answer, then you won't waste time trying to find them. Number 4 is to accept all shifts that are given to you. So for instance, my first week I had completed 5 night shifts of orientation. So I had finished, I only got 5 nights and 5 days because my position is day night. So after my 5 nights, actually the week before I think I even started, they called me and they're like, oh, we're short on your weekend, can you come in for 2 nights? You'll have finished your night orientation. But at that point I only had 5 days on the unit, and then I had to be by myself, which is, I was super freaked out, but I was like, you know what, everyone's gonna, like, people are gonna be there to support me, I won't be by myself, why not? So I accepted it. And they actually haven't called me for any other shift because I've been like pretty much full-time. But if they did, and especially if you're not full-time, say if you're doing like 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 4 days a week, accept all the shifts because it's experience. And if you want to pack as much experience and as many hours as you can in those first like month or so to jam pack all your knowledge, and just like, I don't know, I just feel like it would just give you such a head start, because the more you work, the more you get used to the routine and you get used to things, and then you just like remember things better than if you're working like 2 days a week, super spaced out. You're gonna forget things, you're gonna lose like your rhythm. And so just accept all the shifts and your paycheck will thank you. I got my paycheck this morning and I'm not complaining. The last thing is, don't get discouraged. I was so discouraged so many times in this first month. I would text my friend Kira, who also works in ER in our old hospital, and I would text her and be like, oh my god, I suck, like this happened and this happened. And I'm trying to think of like a specific thing that happened. Oh, my patient's blood pressure was like 95 over something, and he was asymptomatic, and it had been that since triage. So I figured that must be his normal. And the doctor had seen him, and the nurse in triage didn't do anything about it, and the doctor had seen him, so I figured that it was okay. And then the charge nurse came on nights around to like look at all the patients. She looks over the charts and she's like, oh, does the doctor know about his blood pressure? And I was like, well, he must, because it's been like that since he was admitted. And so I looked through the notes. I couldn't see anything about like the doctor knowing, or any like fluids that were given or boluses or anything. And so she told the doctor, and then the doctor ordered a bolus and then NS at 100. And I just felt so down on myself because like she had to do that work for me. So that's another thing I learned: never assume anything. So now, as soon as there's a value that's like out of whack a little bit, if it's new or if the patient's not known for it, I tell the doctor. I don't care if they think I'm stupid, annoying, or if I bug them for useless things, because at the end of the day, it's my license. And in that case, had I just told him, see, he ordered fluids, so it clearly was not normal for the patient, but it looked normal. And then there was another occurrence where, what was it? I think the patient was on, well, this was actually a couple nights ago, and this is something where I did do something about it. So the patient was on magnesium IV, and usually magnesium you give it like 1 gram per hour, but for some reason they gave it over 12 hours. And so I thought, okay, there must be a reason why they're giving it over 12 hours. There must be a specific reason. And they had put the patient on the cardiac monitor. I've never put a patient on a cardiac monitor for magnesium, so I thought, okay, there must be a specific reason. And the patient had been bratty pretty much all night, like down to 44, 42, and before he was like 70. So, and he went as low as 37, and I was like, okay, that's not normal. And I looked it up online, and one of the side effects of giving magnesium IV is bradycardia. So I told the doctor, and even if the patient was asymptomatic, I told the doctor, and he said, oh, that's okay, that's fine, like we'll just keep monitoring. But at least if someone asks me, like in report, or if the charge nurse comes around, I can say, yes, it's okay, the doctor knows, and I can put that in my charting. So never assume anything, because you will make an ass out of yourself like I did. And I've learned my lesson. And if anything, and nurses have that like sixth sense that like we feel it in our gut when something is not right. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but whenever that feeling, sometimes we just toss it away and we're like, oh no, it's normal. No, if you get that feeling, go to the doctor, investigate, at least mention it to someone, get someone else's opinion, talk to your colleagues. Often I'll talk to my colleagues and be like, do you think this is worth mentioning to the doctor? Because I don't have that figured out yet. Like, I don't know if it's worth mentioning or not. I don't want to bug them all the time. So I'll just ask someone, like, do you think this is worth mentioning? If they say yes, then I'll go tell them. If they're like, no, it's okay, it can wait until the morning, then it'll wait until the morning. But at least I have that like second opinion, and I can like be sure of myself that I'm not making a mistake. So those are my 5 tips on starting a new job. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know of any other tips you guys have down below. And so that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.